EXE is a team that is newer to the scene here. Monster 442, Knight, and Tito. But for what it's worth, if you make it to a regional, you are absolutely worth talking about.
Sure.
And looking at some of the performances yesterday, .exe, well, they can execute. So I think this is a nice matchup for XSET.
Yeah, the last time this team, especially Monster, kind of really pinged my radar was back in the third and final year winter regional for North America. They ran under a squad named Empty Space, and they placed like 13th through 16th, so not anything super impressive, but when you get towards that top 16 conversation, that's when you start to at least make a couple of waves in conversations, and ever since then, they've started to improve their game immensely, closing out a lot of gaps at the midfield, which just kind of tightens up your Rocket League gameplay. But, I mean, they have a hard group, EFTA. They had to play G2, Alpine, and NRG. So the fact that they're 0-3 is not anything to just laugh about. They are going against the three best teams currently in their group.
Definitely got to agree with that one. Here, the onus is on XSET to win this game.
Sure.
You come in here and this is what you're supposed to be doing. And frankly speaking, XSET has not been doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so if I'm .exe, this is a phenomenal opportunity for me to find a team that is a middle to high end shelf team and try to find a victory. But it's Hoxer who just sort of bounces this one in. Honestly, just defense sleeping.
Yeah, there tends to be a couple of things you could look at with XSET and say, okay, this is the fast that we're going to try to abuse. But I think the big takeaway for any team watching the resurgence of XSET currently and lately, how they've been able to close out late game situations, XSET are very good at the fundamentals, and that's an aspect they focused on heavily in the grid. They took the grid about as seriously as a world championship, and they were working consistently on making sure their fundamentals were sound. And you can make mistakes as long as your fundamentals in Rocket League are good enough to get you through games. And something that XSET have been doing phenomenally. Again, Hoxer just understanding the free space he has around, and the takeaway from Knight. These are things that you need to stop XSET from doing.
Listen, that first goal was just kind of an okie doke. The second one, earned and burned. Hoxer takes it to the bank and goes off the ceiling. You love to see it. So now with a 2-goal lead, 3 minutes left in the contest. XSET, as I said, it's kind of their duty to do this, but they haven't been going for it, and that's what I want to see more of. Tito, all the way from Knight on the other side. This is a good-looking play. Knight decides to drop it down and give it to the teammate instead of taking it himself, which ultimately leads to getting past the defender, and we've got a 1-goal game.
It's almost like standing in a batting cage and the coach is saying, okay, read the pitch as I release it. Just read the defense as they're coming off onto the ball. At the point of contact, what is the play going to be? Well, man-to-man, okay, interrupt the flow and get someone underneath the ball to be able to punch it through. That's exactly what they did. It works out, and that's how you're going to beat a team like XSET who's top-heavy on defense.
Right now, another shot on goal here. Hoxer blocks it. EXE trying to find their second win of the weekend. Only one W for them in the grand scheme of things. 1-9 with their 10 games played. Obviously, they've lost those series, so trying to find some sort of light in the darkness here for a team that I think is a little bit better than the 1-9 might kind of show.
Sure.
But see, I think this is where they kind of have their limitations, or at least seeming so.
Ooh.
Nice block by Monster. Is they play a little slow, Spaceman.
Yeah, they really do, and that is kind of sometimes just both the nature of the game and a victim of circumstance. The way that Rocket League can form out, especially with top teams, understanding how to disrupt the ebb and flow and create their own kind of offense. But again, so far, I mean, even though they are down a goal, you look at this team and you just say, okay, they're doing a good job of taking the boost away in the corners, which is forcing XSET to pop the ball high to get enough time on defense to recover out to the midfield. If they keep taking away those resources for XSET, you're going to have an easy time moving that defense out of the goal line and taking this ball away off the backboard. Leads way to a counterattack down the field. It's a nice job so far.
$1:30 to go, just about. And good news for EXE fans is that, although they're obviously not in the lead right now, time of possession has been about similar. You know, it hasn't been an XSET dominant game. They're honestly, I think the team with the most possession is the neutral field. In all honesty, we've seen a lot of this, not quite boomer ball, but just like just stuck in the mud, nothing really doing here. And we're continuing to see some of that, which, again, if you're a .exe fan, is a positive.
Yep. If you want to know how well a team is reading the field, there's two things you go off of. One, time of possession. Two, pressure time. How many times do they keep the ball in the opposite end of the field inside XSET's half? So far, they've been winning both categories handedly, and XSET has just been giving it away. And again, this series will tell more about XSET than it will about EXE, because EXE really have nothing to lose. They're playing with house money, although they are down 0-3 in their groups. XSET have been on the climb up ever since the last couple of weeks, so this is a very big matchup for their standings.
You know, if I may, I might challenge that idea that it says more about XSET. I think Tito actually opening things up, and Knight with a phenomenal angle ties the game up with 18 to go.
That is the most ridiculous double tap you will see in the history of a bubble team coming to the RLCS. Hitting it off the back wheel removes all control from the position of the ball. That is unreal. That control on the field. That is disgusting.
That's what I was talking about. I saw moments like this yesterday. And with the game tied up, nobody's going to push this one in. XSET on their last shot. Tito grounds it. And that's OT, baby.
That is one of those angles that it just only has one outcome. You either hit it or you don't. So there's like a 50% chance that's going in. But, I mean, that is ridiculous confidence. J-Pal on the kickoff. Crossbar. And the defense does its job perfectly. So you'll stall XSET out into the corner with very little boost to extend the play. But after you said you were watching them yesterday, what were you noticing out of the EXE squad?
That, honestly. Knight being able to pull off angles like that. We saw a ceiling shot from Knight that was top tier. Like, you watch these bubble teams, and again, they get here for good reason.
Sure.
Right now, Hoxer after J-Pow. And Tito, with the world to himself, has Alpha Kept show up at the last minute. Knight keeps the possession. Going to be met here by defense. Tito, no boost. Monster, on the other hand, sends it directly to Hoxer. And XSET will send J-Pow. Slovenly, though. And really, Spaceman, it's Knight has these shots, dude. You're a bubble team. You've got here for good reason. There are teams that are better than you here, full stop. However, you will see why these teams get here. And it's plays like that. A minute plus in overtime. And ball stuck in mid.
This is a good overtime for XSET because EXE are playing soft touches that really go nowhere. Uh-oh. This might be a chance for a counterattack. And these slow touches leave way to XSET having position at midfield. XSET will spread the defense out towards the sidelines and then go for a quick shot. And that is how you just disrupt the rotation back to the box. XSET are doing a very good job in this OT, though they haven't scored. It's those small details between the sidelines that really matter most. Back to midfield we go. And it's basically no one's ball.
Could be a good setup for XSET. Hoxer comes out of the corner, passes it to Alpha Kept, and takes the game. Beautiful setup play. Hoxer saw that from 0 to 100. And Alpha Kept just clocks in and clocks out. That's the job, boys. Game 1 for XSET.
Yeah, that was just such an easy read for XSET. Again, you had multiple moments in that overtime where EXE were slow touching it for shots and barely popping it out to the midfield. So what does Hoxer do? He brings the ball down to the ground and says, if you guys are going to ball chase on defense, I'm going to wrap it around the corner and punch it out to a teammate who's already centered. And if we quick shoot it, there's no way you're catching the velocity. And that's exactly what he did. He recognized the defensive spread. He understood that ball chasing was going to be the call on the defensive end for EXE, and XSET capitalized. That is just a perfect read through the defensive strat. And that is, again, the fundamentals that XSET will have over most teams, especially teams coming through a bubble, is that understanding and the devil between the details of just how to play the game when it comes down to the ground. Well done, OT.
Game 2 here, starting out. And if you're .exe, you've got to feel okay about that one.
Sure.
I think that is easier said than done. But I mean, you're out here. You've played against many teams that are more difficult to and here's XSET not having a great weekend. And this is sort of a situation that you've got to take advantage of. I think game number 1 is proof that you can do it. But now you've got to actually convert. I'm not here for moral victories, dude. I want to see a W in that column. And right now, .exe is playing like they can, but not like they have.
Yeah, a lot of it just kind of comes down to repetitions and the ability to recognize patterns too. So if you're playing against NRG or G2 or Alpine, you're going to be able to pick up on player tendencies much quicker than a team like XSET who's struggling. I kind of look at XSET like a bit of a Heisenberg principle. Well, so let's extend this analogy, right? So you're going to know when XSET's moving up the field or where XSET are going, but you can't know both. It's more unpredictable than NRG or G2 because you're already over expecting them to create something out of nothing. So you're being able to keep up with the pace mentally. XSET are a little bit slower in that regard. So it's a bit more of a guessing game than you would expect against top teams.
I feel that. I think that's actually really relevant. And you know, shout outs to our resident PhD here. But like on the other side, I think XSET, you know, they're Schrodinger's Rocket League team. You don't know if they're good or bad. They're a bubble team. Here they are. And so like you said before, they're playing with house money, dude.
Yep. They
really can kind of come out and do what they want. Although if they miss the ball like that, that's not going to be too hot there. Knight going to try and keep it on this side. And for the first time all game, it seems like EXE have some sort of control. Scratch that, because it's all orange. Alpha Kev sends it towards. Tito slightly touches it. Hoxer goes a little high. And that'll be blue possession one more time. Knight, no teammate on the left wing. And Hoxer's able to abuse it. Up high, Tito gets a touch. But still scoreless after 2:42.
And these are the moments where, just from a Rocket League viewing perspective, where you're looking at the fundamentals, because we've reached a part, as Tito tried to find the bump, we've reached a part in this game where both teams are kind of uncharacteristically missing hits and missing shots. So it throws off everyone else because you're expecting challenges to go a certain way. And when it doesn't, you fall off the play awkwardly. That's when you need the fundamentals to kick back in and become first nature again. And that's where XSET excels. So far, they have just looked confused, and so has the other side for EXE. Everyone's just unsure of how to play these touches, and it's not looking good.
Hoxer almost had a nice sequence past the defense, but instead it turns around. Tito takes one and leaves it, and again, off of the assist from Knight.
That's one of those turns that Tito just says, I'm going to try to put my car in front of this ball. I don't know if that was planned for the corner, but you get lucky on the turn regardless. A nice placement from Knight as well to get it right over the hood of the defender. And a well-done job to get a 1-0 lead here in Game 2. They're down a game in this series, but it's going to be a long series, I feel like. We might be going the distance.
This is a big deal, I think, for .exe, because if you score that one goal before the 4-minute mark, it's a little scary. You got to hold on for mad long. This is a reasonable amount of time, and I think I'm a little bit less worried. Monster gets credit for the save, but
are you sure about that?
That's all luck, baby. That one, on the other hand, that one belongs to Knight. Nice defense there. Gonna need a lot more of it, though, because after that first goal, XSET seem relentless as they assault the net time and time again.
Yeah, diving saves are pretty, but it doesn't mean you're out of the woods just yet. A lot of boost at the midfield for Tito and Knight. Knight, who's basically been running point on the ball when it comes to counterattacks, and then you work from the ceiling. There it is again. There's the shot. There's the 2-0 lead with 60 seconds on the clock. I mean, you talk about as perfect and as picturesque as you want. Knight calls it, Tito responds, and they get the goal.
And again, off of the assist from Knight.
Yep.
Knight with 2 assists, Tito with 2 goals, and that's the way mommy likes it. Just easy peasy. Share the ball, and we can share the W. Tito gets in the middle. And we are sub 60 seconds now. Blue side of the field. Alpha Kep goes up, but has to dance with a member of EXE. J-Pow keeps it, and Alpha Kep goes up, but it's Knight that gets there first. Knight can't handle the angle, and the ball bounces all the way downfield, which honestly, if you're EXE or a fan of theirs, ain't no thing. It's more time burned off the clock. Counting down here. Monster bounces off, and honestly, it's a little bit too soon, too fast, too hard. Is it enough time, though? 2 goals is too many. And XSET looked like they're about to lose game number 2 to .exe.
Oh, well, this kill surely. Doggy bag goal? Nah, not gonna happen. EXE take game 2. And F dot. A lot of the times when bubble teams start to perform like this at this level, I like to call it dust cover offense, and I'll explain what I mean. So, you know, usually you see what you get with a book, right? The dust cover kind of tells you, okay, this is the antithesis of the story. This is kind of how I expect the vibe to be. When you're a team that's come through the bubble, it's come through a gauntlet, and is now playing against the best in the world, you're going to stick to what works. You're going to stick to what got you to this position and what currently is keeping you, at least for the moment, in the groups. So EXE are showing XSET exactly what they're going to do on offense every time they have the ball. What are they going to do? They're going to have Knight run point up the field. They're going to have him use the ceiling or the sidewall, and they're going to try to find a pass to the midfield for a center every time. That's been the offense for EXE because it's worked. And so it's called a dust cover offense because they're showing you the very top of the book and saying, these are our cards. Play us again. XSET have not been doing a good job of not only reading that, but also they haven't been responding down the field with fundamentals. And when you're not able to get super creative because you're a bubble team and you're sticking to what works because it works, you have to be able to counter that if you're XSET, and XSET just are not doing it.
That's the mindset. That is the mindset. Tied at 1 as we enter the minefield. And Tito is the one with possession right away. Disrupted a little bit. Monster gets tackled. Oh, he had a shot, but a better defensive play coming out from XSET completely ruins that opportunity for .exe. And a shot down, helped out, the own goal. Credit to Hoxer as XSET starts this one off with a bang.
Yeah, if I was XSET's coach in these comms, I'd be saying, all right, let's get physical now. Let's start going for some bumps, for some demos. Let's disrupt the back goal line. Find ways to make EXE uncomfortable on the field, because if they're going to play one-dimensional offense, let's just take them off the play entirely so they can't get super creative and change it on us. So far, XSET off the start have found multiple bumps, and already they have a goal.
That's exactly where I was thinking. Just a much more physical game here out of XSET off the rip. And I mean, it's working. You know, like,
yeah, what are they going to do?
Shove them in a locker,
you?
dude.
Probably not. So just bump them off the play.
Knight here with a decent angle. Not good enough, though. And now it's off to the races, luckily. J-Pow here. One more shot off the wall. Nobody there. A lot of Rocket League to be played here. And so I think that .exe shouldn't be too concerned. One-goal games never really trigger my Richter scale, so to speak. But I start banging around when it becomes 2.
Yeah, you're going to get my attention when you're able to keep up with a team like XSET, but you're really going to get my praise when you're able to counteract their physicality and move around. The way Knight's been able to clear that ball out again, I want to see what EXE do and how they respond to the different level of defense that XSET are throwing on the field, just with the small bumps that take them out of rotation, like this. You're looking for those quick shots to disrupt the goal line, and while it didn't work out there, it doesn't mean it won't in the future. Alpha, off target again. XSET striking has not been there this series.
Really hasn't been. Their disorganization has been their detriment this game, I think, or this series. I think that's really been the key here is a lack of organization, which wouldn't have mattered there. Just a brawn shot from Alpha Cat, but scooped up by .exe defense. Tito here wants to gain control, but he can't. And it's XSET. On the other side, Monster denies. Alpha Cat keeps it here. Up high on left-hand side, misses the opportunity, and hands it off to Knight like a football play. Knight coming from the side, up top, passes down, shot is too high, secondary opportunity won't find the hole either. And it's one more time, XSET ball.
And that was the first time all game we've seen EXE have a secondary possession towards the backboard, or at least try to keep the play alive. So I'm interested to know how they're going to play the rest of the game, more importantly the series. If they only get one good look at the net per drive down the field, XSET, who have just kind of had chippy shots, but it moves the defense out, so you can just counter that by playing man-to-man. For EXE, you're not getting a lot of second touches and possessions, so you got to make the most out of your first swing down the field. They haven't been able to do so, but that was a good chance there. No goal here, and Knight's going to save it away.
Knight is absolutely the player to watch on this team.
Yeah.
Listen, I know Tito's been getting all the goals, and Monster's a good player to zone. Knight is the dude to watch. He is so much fun. He finds himself on the ceiling half the time, gives the angles, and has even been stepping up on the defensive end. This time it's Tito that finds a save here. Tito desperately trying to get this ball out of the blue half, as XSET has done a good job this time around of maintaining possession. Still only one goal, Spaceman, but that's the biggest difference here. We noted the physical play, and for me, it's the amount of time that Orange has had the ball on blue side of the field. Yikes is right, but they get away with it.
Yeah, it seems like EXE already starting to crumble a little bit on defense. They're trying to find a clear for clear's sake and not for possession's sake, and that's the problem, is they're not getting lucky, and they're not having a lot of boost to be able to extend this ball down the field. XSET are doing a very good job of managing the chaos of the goal line and continuing to challenge someone on that ball to just make it even more difficult. I mean, this is the first real decent clear they've had in a minute. Finally, Tito's going to extend, but even on these counterattacks on offense, it's just been a couple of big whiffs here. Knight's going to play it through the corner. No real big center. And they have struggled to get the ball over XSET.
Well, there it is. Final moments ticking down. Still a one-goal game. Absolutely within reason. Monster looking for what could be the last push of game number 2 here. And with that one, that will put an exclamation point on game 2 for XSET.
Yeah, this kind of swatting the ball away defense works really well when you have a lead and there's like 60 seconds left in the game. It doesn't work really well when you're down a goal or two and you only have a minute or so to get back in the game, because you're not holding possession. They were doing it in game 1 and they were applying pressure. They have not done any of that in this one. You could tell, I don't know if it was nerves or just we weren't able to execute our game plan, but the very quick release ball, go for a big clear, doesn't work when you can't maintain possession down the field.
Yeah, I think this is an example of XSET being the team. I said before that the onus here is on XSET, right? The Executables are a team that are coming out of the bubble scene. They're striving to rise up, etc. And XSET is the established. They're the incumbent. And game number 1 was not something XSET wants to show their friends at home. Game number 2 was okay. Yeah, you shouldn't have done that game 1, EXE. Here we are. And so I think that game number 2 was much more indicative of the team that XSET think they are, know they are, and are. And so, if anything, game number 1 was the outlier to me. And if I'm .exe, I need to adjust to what XSET has brought in game 2, which we discussed were a couple of variables.
Yeah, and the over dissection of both what XSET's doing and what EXE are doing are not just for the sake of the broadcast and the sake of just saying, oh, here's us analyzing what they're doing wrong. I mean, these are the fundamentals and the kind of mental analyses that you have to do mid-game for the players. So a lot of this is just looking at how bubble teams play and how this specific team plays and saying, okay, how are you playing against one of the better North American squads that's risen up in the ranks lately, and what are you not doing that could be fixed and would be helping you in the series, because it's been relatively close up until the last minute or so of each game. So it's been a quality showing for EXE, but there are things that are very flagrant that need to be fixed if they want to get back here in the same situation sometime down the road.
I mean, it is a 1-2 series. And so EXE, like I said, I think the second win there is more indicative of the second XSET win is really what you have to focus on beating. You can't focus on beating that first win, as Alpha Cap gets just a toe tap.
I mean, we've seen this gradual decline in the defense so far in the series, and even then, fighting for possession on the ceiling, that's a very, very routine play that if XSET have free range, they're going to punch that ball down for a center, and you better believe that with 6 seasons, or actually 10 seasons into Rocket League now, people know, hey, if you're on the ceiling, look for a center down again.
Ooh.
Hoxer puts in another one. Oh, God, XSET are starting to warm up a little bit.
Yep. Alpha Cat makes it past 1 and sets up Hoxer for a play they have made hundreds of times. The rebound off the right side backboard. And so before the 4-minute mark, 2 goals in the XSET column. Monster with a flip, trying to push it home. Gets it done and looks pretty well doing it.
Oh, respectfully. Absolutely zero need to be that dirty on the play. Monster. That is how you respond on offense.
Yep. And see, again, I mentioned it. I think it was game 2 where Knight had that insane kind of pass off the ceiling. Here we see a coast-to-coast flip reset, solo dribble. Like, you know, nobody's saying this squad is incapable. They are here. And if you make it to a North American regional, I mean, you're in the top exclusive percentage, right? Yeah. And so we know we can see that. What makes it difficult is doing that against other teams. This ain't free play, homie. This is XSET. You've got to do that with the other team on the field. And so we know what can happen. It's just got to be a little bit more consistent. And so my direct question to you, as Hoxer makes his way towards the goal, is how does EXE find that consistency?
Well, one, they can't do what they did last game, which was give the ball away pretty quickly on the counterattacks. They didn't really have a counterattack last game. 2, you have to move out of defense as a unit down the field. Getting a lot of, punch-up shots with the ball to the corner and not really clearing it away is a problem. But the creativity on offense needs to come back. I mean, you have clearly 3 individually talented players who are sticking to a game plan of let's pass to one another and make XSET play us on the team game. If Knight's able to score from the ceiling and Monster can just do that individually down the field, maybe just take the shackles off of one another and just say, okay, let's try to individually all run point and just see if we can get creative, because you're down a goal, you're in game 4, you're already 0-3 in the groups. Try something else, dude. It might come through defense because J Powell just kind of triple tapped this, and this is not okay. Yeah, that's what I get from rambling.
I get the idea. Try something different.
Don't.
At the end of the day, I think if I
down.
could be, I don't think XE. I don't think .exe's decision making is the best, and I think that has led to their downfall. And so, taking the shackles off and saying, "Go ahead and run," positive. Honestly, I see both sides of it. Like, let them go and everybody makes poor choices, or let them go and nobody's thinking, so you can't make poor choices, right? Like, maybe that's the idea. Just play the game.
Yeah, don't force yourself to stick to this style.
Open net, though.
God.
Open net, though. Open net, though.
I mean, if you're EXE, and this is just for going forward, because at this moment you're down 4-1, there's a minute 50. We know Coliseum's a tricky map, sure, but for at least going forward.
Nah, don't give me that. Don't give me that. They're losing because it's Coliseum. Come on.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, Coliseum means they could come back. It's 4-1. We know what happens on this map, but I'm just saying, for the future, for this roster, if you get in a situation where clearly the passing isn't working and clearly the counterattacks aren't working down the field, the defense hasn't been great, J-Pow, nice dunk, who cares? Don't force yourself to stay in the team mold. Like, it's okay to get a little creative and a little wacky. Like, just, both, have fun, but also don't force yourself to play, by the book Rocket League. You can always change things up on the fly.
I agree, and I agree to a certain extent. I think it's very important to play your own game, especially in a game like Rocket League. Like, this isn't a game like a MOBA or something where your pluses and minuses every couple of patches. This is very much you, Envy and G2. That's probably it. Envy and Energy are 2 top teams that have 2 wildly different play styles.
Sure.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think you need to internalize your own play style, figure yourself out. And what a lot of teams do, because you have your play style, but now you're up against a better team, you think you have to internalize the other team and play against them specifically, which is true. But I think being a great Rocket League team is finding the balance of how much of your own identity you need to preserve and push and play with versus how much of your opponent's game you have to sideboard against. And that, I think, is that's the entire equation. So if you get too far away from what you do, if you're a slow team that decides to just hit the gas, that might be even more detrimental.
Here's what I'll extend with, because I agree with 100% of what you just said, but also I would ask that we also consider this. 99% of the teams especially in Rocket League, get their play style through trial and error, and eventually it works. Like, they figure out what exactly works for them. So like G2, pressure heavy offense, consistent passing, good rotational and recoveries, stuff like that. Right. And if you're the 1% like BDS, who your personality comes through the rival series and then it works, that's rare. But for bubble teams coming up, you're not going to figure out what exactly works for you yet until you consistently have trial and error at the top level. So I think that's where I'm coming from, is saying, okay, clearly they're not a BDS. So the best way to figure out what works for this team is when you get in moments where the teamwork and this textbook, we're going to do this, and if we can't execute the game plan, we'll try harder to execute the game plan. If that's not working, do not be afraid to change it up, because you never know if that will be the keystone to figuring out what your personality is. So that's kind of where I'm doing that.
Well, nobody's going to Brazil, so no bom dia. Sorry, folks. Hoxer gets the 7th goal, and I'm proud of EXE for putting up a second one there.
Absolutely.
They're not going to get Braziled here. I'm here for it.
Was this the best showing from EXE? No, but
no.
There is always something to learn in losses like this and in the series, and there's a lot that both as commentators and as competitors you can learn just by watching what to do, what not to do, and how they approach this series. And even though XSET walked away with the 3-0 win in a series that they most likely should have been favored, this was a showing that I hope the EXE squad takes away and says, you know what? There's a lot we can learn, and there's a lot we know we can do right. Let's figure out what works and go back to the drawing board.
Great stuff here from XSET. Good stuff here from .exe as we kind of see them show up and you know, that last one, yes, absolutely. We straight up just didn't, you know, call the action because, well, it's a
we were
massacre,
having a good
folks.
discussion.
But they found that second dub.
Yeah.
They totally did. They are not 1-12 on the weekend. They are 2-12, and that's still not great. But I think that's something that you can put on your mantle. We came up and played with the best of the best. We went up against, you know, Energy and Alpine and G2. That's something that, like, you've got to take to the bank at least a little bit. And so .exe, certainly some stuff to learn. But I'm looking at Knight specifically. Three good players here. But I'm looking at Knight, and I would like to see more of what this gentleman has to offer, whether it's next to these two players or otherwise. I think it's absolutely something to think about.
Well, it's more than what you can put on the mantle, F. It's also what worked well. What you came in and were able to pull off in game that found a couple of goals in game 1, that found a goal or 2 in game 4. It worked well. You did your job on the field, so clearly you're competent enough to be at this level. What didn't work was so flagrant that it's easily understood what needs to be changed, and you can go back and work on that immediately if you so choose. So there's more than just, hey, we took a couple games off some pro teams. There is, we know we can stay at this level, and we know that we can at least compete with teams in the RLCS. So that was a very wholesome series. I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Wholesome. I like that word. Yeah, I'll go with it. Coming up next, we have version 1 versus Volt. Spaceman Volt is 0-3 on the weekend. Version 1, 2-1. Do you think version 1 continues, pushes forward, or is this where Volt gets to stand up?
I think version 1 should absolutely take this, but we might go to game 5 if that's mathematically how these things go. So
Spaceman, always a man of the science. Follow it and follow us here at UGC. As I said, version 1 versus Volt is coming up next. The RLCS day continues. We'll be back after this.